The starship Orion drifted silently through the vastness of space, its crew on edge after months of deep space exploration. Captain Laura Stevens stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the endless stars. The hum of the ship's engines and the soft beeping of the control panels were the only sounds breaking the silence. A sudden, unexpected blip on the radar broke the monotony. "Captain, we have an unidentified object on the radar," reported Lieutenant Hoshi, his voice steady despite the excitement in the air. The young officer's eyes were wide with anticipation as he double-checked the readings. "Bring it up on screen," Laura ordered, her tone calm and authoritative. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a small, drifting escape pod. It was battered and scorched, evidence of a violent encounter. "Life signs?" Laura asked, turning to Dr. Imani Mbeki, the ship's chief medical officer who had just entered the bridge. "Faint but present," Hoshi confirmed, glancing at Dr. Mbeki, who nodded and immediately began preparing her medical kit. "Prepare for retrieval," Laura commanded, her mind racing with possibilities. What kind of being would they find inside? Was it a survivor from a nearby planet, or a traveler from another part of the galaxy? As the crew worked to bring the pod aboard, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery would change everything. The docking bay was abuzz with activity as the pod was carefully secured. Engineers and medics stood ready, their faces masks of professionalism mixed with curiosity. The pod's hatch hissed open, revealing a small, unconscious alien child. Its skin shimmered with a delicate, iridescent hue, and its features were both familiar and alien, a blend of innocence and otherworldliness. Dr. Mbeki and her team quickly moved in, their movements practiced and efficient. "It's a miracle this little one survived," Dr. Mbeki said, her voice filled with wonder as she gently lifted the child from the pod. "We need to get it to the med bay, now." As the team rushed the child to the medical bay, Laura watched with a mix of curiosity and concern. The child's appearance was unlike any alien species they had encountered, delicate, with iridescent skin and large, expressive eyes, even in its unconscious state. She felt a surge of protective instinct, knowing that this fragile being was now under their care. The medbay was a flurry of activity as Dr. Mbeki and her team worked to stabilize the child. Laura stood nearby, her gaze fixed on the alien being that lay on the examination table. The child's chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, a sign that life still clung to it. "Vitals are stabilizing," Dr. Mbeki announced, her tone relieved. "This little one is a fighter." Hours later, the alien child awoke, its large, expressive eyes wide with fear and confusion. Laura and Dr. Mbeki were there, speaking in soothing tones, trying to ease the child's distress. "We're not here to harm you," Laura said gently, her eyes meeting the child's. "We found your pod drifting in space. You're safe now." The child looked around, its fear slowly subsiding. It spoke in a language unknown to them, but Dr. Mbeki quickly activated the ship's universal translator, a device that had become indispensable in their explorations. "My name is Zephyr," the child said, its voice trembling. "Where am I?" "You're on the starship Orion," Laura explained, her voice calm and reassuring. "We're humans, explorers of the galaxy. How did you end up in that pod?" Zephyr's eyes filled with tears and its small, delicate hands trembled. "My home was attacked. I was sent away to save me." Laura's heart ached at the sight of the frightened child. She exchanged a glance with Dr. Mbeki, who nodded in silent agreement. They would do everything in their power to protect this young life. As days turned into weeks, Zephyr began to adapt to life aboard the Orion. The crew grew fond of the child, who proved to be intelligent and curious. Zephyr's presence brought a new sense of purpose to the crew. They were no longer just explorers. They were protectors of this fragile life. The child's laughter and inquisitive nature brightened the ship's corridors, bringing a sense of warmth and unity among the crew members. Zephyr and Laura developed a special bond. The captain often found herself reading bedtime stories to the young alien, teaching about human culture. They spent hours in the ship's library, surrounded by holographic books and interactive displays. Zephyr's eyes would light up with wonder as Laura described the rich history and diverse cultures of Earth. "Why do humans tell stories?" Zephyr asked one evening, curled up in a blanket. Stories help us understand the world, Laura explained. They teach us lessons, preserve our history, and connect us with one another. Zephyr nodded thoughtfully, absorbing every word. The child's curiosity seemed insatiable, and Laura was more than happy to indulge it. However, questions about Zephyr's origins and the nature of the attack on their home lingered. What kind of enemies had targeted such a peaceful being? And what would they do if those enemies came looking for Zephyr? The answers would come soon enough, and the crew of the Orion would need to be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The Orion continued its journey through the stars, with Zephyr slowly adapting to life aboard the ship. The crew had grown protective of the young alien, whose gentle nature and eagerness to learn had endeared Zephyr to everyone. Yet a sense of unease lingered in the background, the unanswered questions about Zephyr's past casting a shadow over their camaraderie. The peace was shattered one day when the ship's sensors detected an approaching fleet of ships, bearing the markings of a warlike species known as the Drakari. The Drakari were infamous throughout the galaxy for their ruthless conquests and brutal tactics. As soon as the readings came in, Lieutenant Hoshi's voice broke the tense silence on the bridge. "Captain, we have incoming ships. They're Drakari," he announced, his voice steady but grim. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. "How many?" she asked, already bracing for the worst. "At least 5 warships," Hoshi replied. "They'll be in range within the hour." Laura called an emergency meeting in the war room. The officers gathered around the table, their faces reflecting a mix of determination and anxiety. "We've identified the attackers from Zephyr's story," Laura began, her face grim. "The Drakari are known for their ruthless conquests. They're likely the ones who destroyed Zephyr's home." "What do we do?" Lieutenant Hoshi asked, his eyes shifting to Zephyr, who sat quietly at the end of the table, looking small and vulnerable. "We defend ourselves and protect Zephyr," Laura declared, her voice firm. "We'll try to communicate first, but we must be prepared for battle." Zephyr looked up, eyes wide with fear. "I'm sorry," they whispered. "I didn't mean to bring danger to you." Laura knelt beside Zephyr, placing a reassuring hand on the child's shoulder. "This isn't your fault, Zephyr. We're going to get through this together." As the Drakari fleet approached, Laura decided to attempt communication, hoping to avoid a direct conflict. The bridge was tense as she opened a channel to the Drakari flagship. The screen flickered and then displayed the menacing visage of General Krar, the leader of the Drakari forces. His face was scarred and his eyes burned with a cold, ruthless intelligence. "You have something that belongs to us," Krar snarled, his voice a low growl. "Return the child, and we might spare your lives." Laura stood tall, meeting Krar's gaze without flinching. "Zephyr is under our protection," she replied firmly. "We will not hand them over." Krar's eyes narrowed, a dangerous gleam flickering in their depths. "Then prepare to be destroyed," he said, cutting the transmission abruptly. Laura turned to her crew, her expression resolute. "All hands to battle stations. We're not going down without a fight." The Orion's crew sprang into action, each member performing their duties with practiced precision. The ship's shields were raised, and weapon systems were powered up. The tension was palpable as the Drakari fleet closed in, but Laura had a plan. She knew they had to outsmart the Drakari, not just outgun them. The Drakari were known for their brute force, but they were often arrogant and underestimated their enemies. "Lieutenant Hoshi, prepare to deploy countermeasures," Laura ordered. "We're going to create a decoy field." As the Drakari ships moved into attack formation, the Orion launched a series of drones, each emitting false signals that mimicked the ship's signature. The battlefield became a chaotic web of decoys, confusing the enemy sensors. The Drakari opened fire, but their shots were scattered and ineffective, hitting the decoys instead of the Orion. Laura used the distraction to maneuver the ship into a more advantageous position. "Focus fire on their lead ship," Laura commanded. "If we can disable Krar's vessel, we might stand a chance." As the battle raged, Zephyr watched from a safe room, feeling helpless. The young alien's mind raced, trying to think of a way to help. Then an idea formed, and Zephyr knew they had to act. Zephyr approached Dr. Mbeki with a determined expression. "I need to help. There's something I can do." Dr. Mbeki looked at Zephyr with a mix of concern and curiosity. What do you mean? My people have a technology, a defensive shield that can protect your ship. I can activate it, Zephyr explained. Dr. Mbeki hesitated, but seeing the earnestness in Zephyr's eyes, she nodded. All right, let's do it. But you have to promise to be careful. With Dr. Mbeki's help, Zephyr accessed the Orion systems and began integrating their technology. A shimmering, translucent shield enveloped the ship, just as a barrage of Drakari fire threatened to overwhelm them. The crew watched in awe as the new shield absorbed the enemy fire, holding strong against the onslaught. Laura seized the opportunity, ordering a concentrated attack on the Drakari flagship. The battle was far from over, but with Zephyr's help, the Orion had a fighting chance. The bond between the crew and their young alien friend had turned the tide, and they were determined to protect their new family at all costs. The Drakari fleet moved in, and the space around the Orion erupted into chaos. Laser blasts and missiles filled the void, with the Orion maneuvering deftly to avoid the worst of the onslaught. The crew worked in unison, their training and experience coming to the fore as they executed complex maneuvers to keep the ship intact. Shields holding at 70%, reported Lieutenant Hoshi, his fingers flying over the console. But we can't keep this up forever. The Orion's weapons targeted the Drakari flagship, unleashing a barrage of laser fire and missiles. The enemy ship's shields flared under the assault, but the Drakari were quick to retaliate. The Orion shuddered as it was hit by a particularly powerful blast, sparks flying from overloaded circuits. "Damage report!" Laura shouted over the din. "Minor hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, came the response. "We've got repair teams on it." The Orion's new shield held strong, absorbing the enemy fire. The crew fought back with renewed vigor, targeting the weak points in the Drakari fleet. "Concentrate all firepower on the Drakari flagship," Laura ordered, her voice steady despite the tension. "We need to take Krar out of the equation." The Orion's weapon systems locked onto the flagship, and a coordinated volley of laser blasts and missiles slammed into the enemy vessel. The Drakari ship's shields flickered and then failed, leaving it vulnerable. "Direct hit on their engines," Hoshi reported. "They're losing power." General Krar's ship was disabled, and the remaining Drakari vessels began to retreat. Laura ordered a ceasefire, offering the Drakari a chance to surrender. "This isn't over," Krar growled as he was taken into custody. "You've made a powerful enemy today." Laura met his gaze with a steely resolve. "We protected an innocent life. We'll face whatever comes next." With the immediate threat neutralized, the crew of the Orion breathed a collective sigh of relief. The damage to the ship was extensive, but they had survived, thanks in large part to Zephyr's quick thinking and bravery. Zephyr approached Laura, their eyes filled with a mix of relief and concern. "Did I do the right thing?" they asked quietly. Laura smiled, placing a reassuring hand on Zephyr's shoulder. "You saved us, Zephyr. You did more than we could have ever asked for." As the Orion set course for the nearest starbase to make repairs, the crew reflected on the battle and what it meant for their future. The alliance they had formed with Zephyr had proven invaluable, and they knew that their bond would only grow stronger. In the medbay, Dr. Mbeki finished her examination of Zephyr, who had suffered no ill effects from the battle. "You're quite the hero," she said with a warm smile. Zephyr blushed, their iridescent skin glowing faintly. "I just wanted to help." "And you did," Dr. Mbeki assured them. "We're lucky to have you with us." Zephyr spent the next few days working closely with the engineering team, sharing knowledge of advanced shielding, energy management, and other technologies. The crew was amazed by the young alien's expertise and willingness to help. As the Orion systems were upgraded, the bond between Zephyr and the crew grew stronger. The child's presence had transformed their mission, giving them a renewed sense of purpose and unity. One evening, as the ship cruised through the quiet reaches of space, Laura found Zephyr in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Penny for your thoughts?" Laura asked, joining Zephyr at the window. Zephyr smiled, their eyes reflecting the starlight. "I was just thinking about my home. I miss it, but I'm glad I found a new family here." Laura placed a comforting hand on Zephyr's shoulder. "We're glad you're here too, Zephyr. You've taught us so much, and not just about technology." Zephyr looked up at Laura, their eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Captain, for everything. With the immediate threat of the Drakari neutralized and their ship repaired, the Orion continued its journey. The crew's spirits were high, buoyed by their recent victory and the strong bond they had formed with Zephyr. However, the shadow of General Krar's words lingered in the back of everyone's minds. They knew the Drakari would not easily forget their defeat. Laura decided that it was time to seek out potential allies. The galaxy was vast, and there were many civilizations with their own reasons to oppose the Drakari. If they could form alliances, they would be better prepared for any future confrontations. Set a course for the Tridian system, Laura ordered. They have a well-established network of allies. If we can gain their support, it could make all the difference. The journey to the Tridian system took several days. During that time, Zephyr continued to share knowledge and technology with the crew, further integrating their advanced systems with the Orion's infrastructure. The ship was now stronger and more capable than ever before. As they approached the Tridian system, they were greeted by a fleet of sleek, silver ships. The Tridians were a technologically advanced and peaceful race, known for their diplomacy and wisdom. A holographic communication link was established, and the serene face of High Chancellor Ilara appeared before them. "Welcome, Orion," Ilara said, her voice melodic and calming. "We have heard of your recent encounter with the Drakari. How can we be of assistance?" Laura stepped forward, her demeanor respectful and earnest. "High Chancellor, we seek to form an alliance. The Drakari are a threat to us all, and together we stand a better chance of defending our people and preserving peace." Ilara nodded thoughtfully. "We share your concerns, Captain Stevens. The Drakari have been a menace for too long. We will convene with our council and consider your proposal." While they awaited the council's decision, the crew of the Orion was invited to visit the Tridian capital. The city was a marvel of architectural beauty and advanced technology, with soaring spires and shimmering energy fields. Zephyr was particularly fascinated, their eyes wide with wonder as they took in the sights. "Captain, this place is amazing," Zephyr exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it." Laura smiled, sharing in Zephyr's awe. "It truly is. The Tridians have much to teach us." The council meeting took place in a grand hall, with representatives from various allied species in attendance. Laura and her senior staff presented their case, highlighting the potential benefits of a united front against the Drakari. After hours of deliberation, High Chancellor Ilara addressed the assembly. "The council has reached a decision. We will join forces with the Orion and her crew. Together, we will stand against the Drakari and protect our way of life." The announcement was met with applause and expressions of gratitude. The alliance was a significant victory, one that would strengthen their position and send a clear message to the Drakari. With the alliance formed, the Orion and its new allies began coordinating their efforts. The Tridians shared their advanced defense systems and strategic knowledge, while the other allied species offered their unique skills and resources. The Orion's crew worked tirelessly to integrate these new technologies and prepare for any future encounters with the Drakari. Zephyr played a crucial role in these efforts, using their understanding of advanced technology to help implement the Tridian systems. The young aliens' determination and intelligence impressed everyone, and they quickly became a valued member of the coalition. One day, while overseeing the installation of a new energy shield generator, Laura received an urgent communication from the Tridian Command Center. "Captain Stevens, we've detected a large Drakari fleet heading our way. They're on an intercept course." Laura's heart sank, but she quickly regained her composure. "All hands to battle stations. Prepare for immediate engagement." The Allied fleet, now bolstered by Tridian ships and other Allied vessels, formed up around the Orion. The Drakari fleet appeared on the horizon, their ships dark and menacing. At the helm of the flagship was General Krar, his face twisted with rage and determination. "Humans and their allies," Krar's voice boomed over the comms. "You have defied us for the last time. Prepare to be annihilated." Laura stood tall on the bridge, her expression resolute. "This is Captain Laura Stevens of the starship Orion. We stand united against tyranny and aggression. We will not back down." The battle began with a ferocity unmatched by any previous engagement. The combined might of the Allied fleet clashed with the Drakari ships, the void of space lit up by the exchange of laser fire and explosions. The Orion's newly upgraded shields and weapons proved to be a formidable force, thanks to Zephyr's enhancements and the Tridian technology. Zephyr, working alongside Lieutenant Hoshi, monitored the shield generators and redirected power where it was needed most. "Captain, the shields are holding, but we need to maintain our position. The Tridian fleet is focusing on the flanks." "Understood," Laura replied, her eyes scanning the battle. "All units, hold the line. We cannot let them break through." As the battle raged on, it became clear that the united front was making a significant impact. The Drakari, unaccustomed to facing such coordinated resistance, began to falter. One by one, their ships were disabled or destroyed. General Krar, seeing his forces decimated, made a desperate move. His flagship broke through the lines, heading straight for the Orion. "Captain Stevens," he snarled over the comms, "this ends now." Laura met his gaze on the view screen, her expression calm and unyielding. "Yes, it does." With precision and timing honed by countless battles, the Orion and its allies concentrated their fire on Krar's flagship. The enemy ship's shields buckled and failed under the assault, and a final, devastating volley from the Orion's main cannons tore through its hull. The Drakari flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, and the remaining Drakari ships, leaderless and demoralized, retreated into the void. Cheers erupted across the Orion and the Allied fleet. The battle was won, and the Drakari threat had been dealt a significant blow. Laura turned to her crew, her heart swelling with pride. "Well done, everyone. This victory belongs to all of us," she said. She looked at Zephyr, who had played such a crucial role in their success. "And especially to you, Zephyr. Your bravery and intelligence saved us all." Zephyr smiled, their eyes shining with happiness. "I'm just glad I could help." As the Allied fleet regrouped and the damage was assessed, it was clear that the bonds forged in this battle would endure. The Orion and its crew had proven their strength and resolve, and their alliance with the Tridians and other species would only grow stronger. The galaxy was a vast and unpredictable place, filled with dangers and wonders alike. But with their new allies and the unbreakable bond they shared with Zephyr, the crew of the Orion knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would continue to explore, protect, and uphold the values of unity and cooperation that had seen them through their darkest hours.